Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a new batch of soap. I'm actually going to be experimenting today. I am using this lemongrass green tea fragrance oil from Wholesale Supplies Plus, and I've never used it before, so I don't know how it's going to behave. But according to the website and all the reviews, everybody's saying, oh, it behaves so well. So we're going to try something here. It's been a long time since I've done this, but I'm going to do an ombre soap with this yellow color because lemongrass, lemon. So I'm going to make like an ombre. If you're not familiar, it's like darker at the bottom and then gradually gets lighter, or vice versa, however you want to do it. And then in the middle of the ombre, I'm going to make kind of a feather swirl out of this deep green color to signify the lemongrass again. And I've never done that before, so we'll see how this pans out. But the lemon is actually, so I had to kind of finagle a color here. So I had this Sunday Funday yellow mica from Wholesale Supplies Plus, but if you can see from here, it's a little too light for me. So I wanted it to be yellow, and I had this deeper kind of neon laser lemon. This is like my handwritten label, but I got this as a sample, also from Wholesale Supplies Plus. And I mix these two together to get this kind of bright but deeper yellow. And I did the same thing with this green color. So I have this I have this lime green mojito, which has kind of got a yellow green tone to it, and I liked that. But again, when compared to this yellow color, there's not much of a contrast. So I took this, this is pretty old actually, but this is the matte woodland green pigment powder, which I don't even know if is available anymore. I haven't checked, but I'm sure it is. But it's basically just a dark green, kind of like forest green oxide color. And I mixed it with that to get this like deeper, but like there's still a shimmer to it. It's not quite as green as that forest green, but it's still like contrasty enough with the yellow. And for the top, I have an idea for the top, but I'm not really sure how this is going to behave. So depending on how it behaves, it could go one of two ways. I could either just swirl it on the top, like do like another feather swirl on the top with this color, or if it starts to like thicken up, I might just pipe leaves on the top with this color. So this color is actually the baby grasshopper green, which actually has more of a blue tone to the green, and that's fine because it's going to be on the top anyway. So anyway, my oils are melting right now, so I decided to prepare everything. This is my lye here, and then I've got my fragrance already measured out. This is actually 1.4 ounces. I've got a little bit over a pound of oils, and I've got my colors. I've got my stick blender lying in wait back here, and then I have my mixing containers. I'm going to have the smaller ones, one of these for the feather swirl, and then one of them for the top swirl, and then my main bucket for the lemon. I'm just speeding this part up a little bit because all I'm doing is just slowly adding the lye, and then I'm stick blending to make homogeneous. I also added the fragrance. Okay, so I've mixed my fragrance into the bulk of the soap, and so far so good. It's still pretty thin trace, so I mean it looks homogeneous and it's pretty thin. So my goal is actually with this ombre is to kind of have it a little bit, maybe more medium trace, but I don't know, I can work with this. This is good. So anyway, I haven't really decided how I'm going to tackle this, but I think what I'm going to do is pour maybe half of this aside, pour some of it in my feather cup and some of it in my swirl cup, Actually, the feather cup doesn't need that much. Or the top swirl doesn't need that much. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I have a hard time judging these things. Okay, a little bit more here. So what I'm gonna do, let's see, a little bit more. Okay, I think I'm going to add the bulk of my color, my yellow color here. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's pretty yellow. That's what we want. Okay. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and pour this in the bottom, but only about half of it. Okay. It looks like maybe I could put a little bit more in there. Okay. Got some bubbles out. Now I'm going to add a little bit more of my uncolored base to this to kind of dilute the color. Okay. Now this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky because this is so light. This is why I wanted medium trace. I don't want it to break through to the bottom layer. So I gotta be very careful about how I layer this on here. Just gently pour. You can see a slight difference. This is the trick with ombre. It's like a very subtle difference. It might be hard to see it at first when you're first doing this. Sorry if my head is in the way. I can't tell when I'm like focused on this here. Okay. I think sometimes I have better luck scooping and pouring. In fact, I'm gonna switch to a different spatula at this point so I can get better scooping action. It's like a curved spatula, so I can scoop a little bit better. Okay. This fragrance is doing wonderful. It's not really thickening up. Kind of staying pretty thin. Behaving very well. Like I said, this is the trick with the thin stuff. It's like, you know, takes a little bit longer, a little bit more patience if you want to make layers. So, go ahead and flatten out those lines. Okay. Pound it a little bit, and now pour a little bit more of my undiluted or uncolored batter to dilute it a little bit more. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and start with my feather. So, I'll put my green in here. I'm just mixing it with a regular stainless knife. It's a good contrast. Okay. And now here, maybe I'll use, well, I think I'm just gonna gently pour a line down the middle. Okay. Might want to make it a little bit wider, because I kind of like how it looked in my Blue Island feather video, where the bottom one was a little bit thicker than the top ones. Okay, it's good for me. And now I'm going to take my ombre color. Ooh, kind of spread my green a little bit on accident there. That was unintentional. So I guess we'll find out how that looks when it's all said and done. It'll be all right. And this is kind of an ambitious project for an unknown fragrance. Like if you don't know how the fragrance is going to behave, which I do really appreciate reviews. So you can tell that this layer is definitely lighter than the last. Make sure I'm covering the whole bit. Smooth it out just a skosh. Okay. Add some more diluent. Ooh, it's getting thick. All right. Stir this up a little bit. I think stirring it kind of thins it back out. Yep, definitely does. All right. A little bit thinner on this end. Pour a little bit more on the feather. Try to aim for the same area because you want these blocks to be stacked on top of each other. Try not to make it spread again like I did first time. Put a nice layer. It's kind of cool when you can kind of see the green underneath still, because it's like semi-transparent. Okay. Let's thin that out a little bit. I want to make the whole layer, not just cover the leaf, but we need to make the whole layer this ombre. But we also need to kind of conserve what we have in here because I need to use the previous color in order to make the next color. Again, you're almost there. Let's do another stripe. Looking good. It's getting firmer. Makes it easier to do these things. Sometimes firmer soap is better for certain kinds of swirling within the soap too, because it has more body, so to speak, to push. So like this feather, for example, you know, it's right now it's just stripes in here, but when I take my hanger and swirl it, it's gonna have that body behind it to kind of push the whole feather together and make that more defined shape. Let's cover this just a tad more. Okay. And mix. Actually, this is the last of it, so I'm gonna go ahead and, oh, I'm gonna save it because I want the top layer to be as light as possible. Okay, so this is probably gonna do it for my leaf layer, but I have a little extra in there. I could probably layer with my, which I never mixed, with my swirl. Wipe this off here. I never mixed my swirl color, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. Again, just mix with the knife. I wiped the knife off first because I had that darker green and I didn't want to mix that darker green in there. Okay. Sorry, I'm being quiet. I'm just kind of concentrating. Basically, I'm just doing the same thing that I've been doing. Just trying to make this whole layer lighter. This, since I'm using like a mica, these colors don't typically migrate into other layers, so the ombre effect is going to be more defined. But if you're interested in kind of making it a more blended look, you can use other colors that migrate. So, and I've done it before and it looks pretty cool. It's just basically like a hazy gradient. Okay, so I'm gonna mix this last bit in here. This is my last bit of the bulk soap. But before I add it to the top, actually I might go ahead and put another layer down, a thin one, so that's all I got. All right. And I'm just going to cover it for now. There's almost no yellow left in this color. I mean, there's a little bit, but not much. Okay, so all I did was put a thin layer on top of that. I'm gonna take my my janky hanger tool it's a coated wire hanger that I cut up, and just go straight down the center of that and curl it up. That's all I'm gonna do. I can probably just mix this up here, you won't even tell. Alright. Now I'm going to finish my final layer. Sometimes when you do those kind of things, like some of this darker color will pull up to the top, which is why it's good to save a little bit to cover the top just in case that happens. It didn't in this case, but I was prepared. Okay, since this doesn't seem to be hardening up anytime soon, I'm going to go ahead and do the swirl instead of the piping, because otherwise I'll have to wait for ages for it to thicken up and get it ready to pipe. So since I have some extra of the other colors too, I'm going to mix the remaining, or not remaining, but mix some of this yellow in with the last bit of my soap. Try to scrape the edges, conserve as much as I can, waste not. Looks like I got some of my hair in it. Sorry about that. Saw it like hanging on the ends of my hair. Okay. So that looks good. What am I going to do here? So I'll go ahead and make this interesting little pattern. It's not going to make much sense right now, but you'll see at the end result. And of course, maybe the end result won't make sense either, but we'll see. I'll always fix it. There's quite a bit extra, so. And there's just a little bit of this left. So I'm just gonna put chunk. Just random ones here and there because I don't have much left. And it doesn't seem to be as contrasty. I mean, it's a little contrasty with this, but not as much as I'd hoped. So I think we'll call that one good. And then I got this yellow here, which I've got a lot of actually. I probably should have made my layer. Well, you know what? I was gonna make more feathers on top, but I've got so much of this yellow and I still have some of this green left too that I'm just gonna be random with this. Sometimes there's beauty in randomness. And I'm still gonna swirl it, so it's not like it's gonna stay this weirdness, but see, I still have a ton here. So I'm going to just tried and true. That's out of that. Maybe I'll contrast that out a little bit. Some more yellow. Okay. That is that. Okay, and I'm gonna get my trusty chopstick out. It's another janky chopstick, and I think I'm going to maybe do this one. So I'm basically just going back and forth diagonally. By doing the edges like this, you're kind of moving it into like a circular kind of flow. I kind of don't like how some of these in the middle, you got to be very careful when you're swirling too, because you also don't want it to get muddy. So I've got some really delicate swirls in here, which will be manifest when it dries, or when it hardens, I should say. I paint too, so get the terminology mixed up. Okay, so, oh man, I didn't realize that the sun was just shining so bright on that. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little bit of dark spots in there from the darker green, but for the most part, this is still pretty fluid. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this in my oven I might go ahead and turn it on just a little bit on low, like 170, and leave it on for a couple, like maybe 10 minutes, and then turn it off. And it's kind of what the heat is, what it's going to do is kind of encourage the saponification process. So anyway, that is what I'm going to do now. Sorry I did not film me cutting it, but here's the top part after it's been cured for about 2 days. It's pretty solid in the mold. And then after cutting, you can see that there's a really nice little fern looking leaf in there. I'm pretty happy with this. You can't really tell in the photo. There's just a slight ombre gradient to it. It's not as intense as I would hope, but I think it turned out pretty well, so I'm happy with it. At any rate, these soaps are, as always, available on my site. It's linked in the description. So if you're interested in subscribing to my channel, just click on my portrait on the right there. And then if you'd like to receive notifications when I post, just click on the bell. And I will see you next time for some other artistic or soapy adventure. Bye!